The film begins with a documentary showing pharaohs, and the love story between Cleopatra and the Roman commander Antonio is being talked in the documentary. Their love story ended tragically as they commit suicide. They prefer death to separation. We get to know that the Roman commander had gifted Cleopatra 3 golden eggs on their wedding day. These eggs remained a legend for many years. But in 1907, the eggs were found in Cairo, Egypt, but unfortunately, one of those eggs was lost. As for the 2 eggs, their place is well known. To this day, no one knows the location of the 3rd egg that was lost. We are now getting to know a person named Nolan, who is a professional thief, and he was watching a documentary, and we see him pouring silver, gold, and stones in shape of an egg, and when he completes it, he takes it and leaves. Then a leaflet showing the name of the movie, the red notice, appears, which is Red List. It contains the highest level of arrest warrants. These warrants are issued by an international criminal court devoted to most dangerous criminals in the world. We move to Rome and see Agent John in the scene, who is a special agent and persona analyst, and had with him Operation DAS and their support team, and they were heading to the museum because they had news from someone named Bishop, and they knew through Bishop that there was a theft that would happen to the egg in the museum. And when they arrived, they saw the egg in its place. But John knew that something was up, so he decides to use the thermal sensor. It is discovered through the service that the existing egg is not the original egg, but an imitation egg. This is because gold emits heat, and this egg does not send any radiation through the device. But the head of the museum did not believe John and told him that there was a malfunction in the thermal sensor. John takes a soda from one of the kids and pours it on the egg. We watch the egg melt after he poured the soda on it, and everyone knew that the original egg was stolen. We see a person named Nolan who was watching what was happening between people, and he was surprised and ran. And we watch the agents closing the doors in order to prevent anyone from escaping. Then we watched John trying to catch up with Nolan, but Nolan was faster than John and he managed to get through the doors with ease. So John gets a different direction to catch Nolan. Nolan managed to go up to the 2nd floor. When Nolan arrives, he sees that maintenance work is taking place. The police are trying to catch up with him, but Nolan, due to his speed, managed to overtake them and drop the construction tools on them. He was close to leaving, but he was surprised by John's presence in front of him. John raises his gun at Nolan and orders him to return the egg, but Nolan attempts to run. John pushes Nolan up to the window and they fall onto the roof. John managed to stick to the edge of the roof and Nolan was able to escape again. John is trying to catch up with him. When he tries to catch up with him, he sees Nolan riding his bike and fleeing. John decides to catch him with his car. Unfortunately, he gets into a traffic accident and cannot catch up with him. And after more than 56 hours have passed since the theft, Nolan arrives at his home in Bali. And when he enters, he is surprised that John is in the house. The whole team is there, including Detective Doss. She started talking to him, and through their conversation, we know that Nolan is wanted in more than 18 countries. He is an escapee from 6 giant prisons. Investigator Doss tells him that they will send him to the worst prisons in the world. Then John begins to talk to Nolan. He tells him that he has been studying his character and has known him well since 2014, when Nolan stole the painting of the Red Hat. But Nolan denies this robbery and tells John that he has no evidence against him in this robbery. John looks up at the wall and sees the stolen painting. John begins to talk about Nolan's past and learns that Nolan is his father's only son, and his first theft was at the age of 6 years. He believed that stealing gives a feeling of distinction and difference, and Nolan likes to work on his own. Nolan likes to see what he steals published in the papers. Also, Nolan likes to chase and take risks, and he stays at the scene of theft until the police arrive deliberately. Then he flees from them and proves to himself that he is better than them. Then the police arrest Nolan and put him in the car, and they kept the egg in a bag and put it in the car. And when John goes to the car, the thief Bishop comes and replaces the original egg with a fake one, and she took the egg and ran away. And after 32 hours have passed since the arrest, John was in Rome, and the Detective Doss came to him with an egg, and she broke it. Detective Doss then accuses John of stealing the original egg. This is because on the day of the robbery, $8 million have been transferred to John's account. The Detective Doss arrests him, and then they take John to a prison in Russia. When he enters the prison, he sees Nolan in it. It becomes clear to John that they will be sharing a cell together. Then they go to eat their lunch. Nolan begins to talk about Bishop. He tells John that it was Bishop who did this to get rid of them. This is because she needs the eggs in order to sell them to an Egyptian billionaire, and that this billionaire wants to present these eggs as a gift to his daughter on her wedding day. And Bishop will get $300 million. So John and Nolan decide to team up to get the eggs. John tells Nolan about the location of the second egg, which is with an arms dealer. But Nolan interrupts John and tells him every detail about the arms dealer. John is surprised. Suddenly, Nolan stands up and starts speaking to the prisoners. He tells them that John is both an agent and a policeman and warns them about him. Then he sits down. Then a prisoner comes to John and throws food at him, but John did nothing for him to avoid chaos. And then John gets hit by one of the prisoners. However, the police intervene and take Nolan and John to the head of the prison. And when they reached to meet him, they found Bishop. Bishop welcomed them, and she began to talk to them and asked for their help in finding the second and third eggs. She tells them that she will give them 10% of the profits, but Nolan declines. But John is surprised by what she said about the third egg because John thought the third egg was gone. She tells him that Nolan knows where the third egg is. Bishop told John that because he didn't trust you, he didn't tell you where she was. And then Bishop left him and went. And then they went back to their cell and started thinking of escaping from prison, and they made a plan. And in the morning of a new day, they began to implement the plan, where they ignited an explosion in the laundry room. The prison guards are trying to control what's going on, and chaos occurs among the prisoners. Nolan and John took advantage of the chaos and escaped, but the guards noticed them, but they were unable to arrest them. We see Nolan and John on the edge of the wall. They managed to climb over the wall. They reached a place and saw a helicopter. They attacked the guards and a violent confrontation took place between them. John managed to shoot a place that led to closing the main prison door. Then he ran towards the bridge to catch Nolan on the plane. However, the prison guards managed to blow up the bridge, and John managed to hold up onto the rope and climbed up with difficulty. Nolan was firing at guards. John manages to jump out and climb onto the plane. Suddenly, they see a guard firing a missile at the plane, but John managed to open the door of the plane and make the missile pass through the plane, and they managed to avoid the missile and escape. On the second day we move to London. We see Bishop storming the intelligence building and being in a client's room and managing to handcuff him. She managed to use his computer and she started to send a message to Detective Doss. It contained information about John and Nolan's prison escape, and when she received the message, Bishop runs away. And then we watch Nolan and John as they head to Valencia to steal the second egg. And when they arrive at the place, there is a party. So John and Nolan go to the party, but separately. John watches Bishop and decides to go and talk to her. He tells her her hands are tied and she will be sent to prison. Bishop mocks John and leaves, but he goes and pulls her to dance with him. In the meantime, a merchant watches them, and this merchant is the owner of this party. So he takes Bishop from John in order to dance with her, and John managed with his sleight of hands to steal this merchant's phone. Then he goes towards Nolan and they enter together into the merchant's office. The phone contained the code, and while they try to write the code to enter, Detective Doss shows them up. She asks John to arrest Nolan, but John takes her handcuffs, tricks her, and attacks her. They manage to enter the room and close the door, and after, they enter in order to take the egg. Suddenly, Bishop appears and takes the egg, but they did not give up, and there was a strong quarrel between them. When Nolan and John fell to the ground, the merchant went into his room. He was surprised by the presence of the thieves. Nolan and John were surprised when they saw Bishop handing over the egg to the merchant. They discovered her cooperation with him, and they were beaten and lost consciousness. When they regained consciousness, they found themselves tied up, and Bishop and the merchant began to interrogate them to tell them the location of the third egg, but Nolan refused to inform them. Bishop began torturing John to force Nolan to talk. Indeed, Nolan recognizes the location of the third egg and tells it that it is in Egypt, in the city of Cairo, and it is kept in Cleopatra's tomb. So Bishop rejoices with the merchant and they drink the wine. But suddenly, the merchant falls and we discover that Bishop has put a narcotic substance in the drink and then leave them and go. Nolan and John try to free themselves but fail. After the passage of time, the merchant begins to regain consciousness and he throws them randomly. Fortunately, one of the bullets hit the iron on John's handcuffs and he was able to free himself from the handcuffs. John decides to catch up with Bishop. Nolan asks him to take him with him. Nolan tells John that he did not tell Bishop the correct location of the third egg. Indeed, they go together, and while they are leaving, they see a ladder. and they start climbing. And when they go out, they find themselves in the center of the ring, and it was full of the audience. And in the middle of the arena was a raging bull, and the bull begins to attack them, but they can run and they manage to get out of the ring, and then they ride a train. John asks Nolan about the location of the third egg, but Nolan refuses to speak, telling him he doesn't trust him. John pushes Nolan over the edge of the train. At the last moment, John pulls Nolan before he crashes into another train. Nolan was surprised by what happened, and he knew that John had done all this to make him trust him. John starts talking about his childhood and what he had. Nolan is affected by what John said and decides to trust him and tell him the location of the third egg. And he tells him that the third egg is in Argentina, and he got there because the egg was in Hitler's possession. And when Hitler died, his fortune was transferred to Argentina, and the map is available only with Nolan. After a few days, they arrived in Argentina and they go to a place on the map. When they arrive, they did not get anything. John begins to get intolerant and slams the compass on the ground. They heard the sound of a collision with iron, and they were surprised when they saw something that was underground. So they decided to go down, and when they arrived, they started searching. For after a long search, they were able to find the egg. But suddenly, Bishop appears and threatens them with a gun. She asks Nolan to give her the egg. Nolan goes to Bishop, and suddenly Detective Dawes and her team enter upon them, and gunfire occurs between them. The thieves cooperate with each other in order to get out of the place. They get rid of Dawes and her team. They climbed up into the car and tried to escape, but the police tried to catch up with them, and a violent confrontation occurred between them, and we see that at the end of the path, there was a waterfall. The thieves decide to jump into the river. Police could not jump into the river, and then we see Nolan in the river with the egg. But John was not found, so he decided to lay the egg on dry land and look for John in the river. But John was already on land, so Nolan comes out. They decided to escape together, but they saw Bishop. Nolan was trying to tease Bishop, but suddenly, John hugs Bishop. It appears that they are married, and that all that happened was a well-thought plan in order for them to reach the 3 eggs through Nolan. And when they got the egg, they tied Nolan in the woods and left him. After a few days, we moved to Egypt and watched the wedding of the daughter of the Egyptian billionaire. John and Bishop were at the wedding. The Egyptian billionaire is giving the eggs to his daughter, but suddenly, the police enters the party and arrest the billionaire for stealing eggs, and John and Bishop manage to escape from the place easily. 6 months later, we see John and Bishop on a small boat. Nolan appears with them, asking them to help him in a major robbery, and he tells them that they will form a strong team together. And if they refuse, they will be arrested because the investigator Dawes has frozen all their accounts and tells them that she is on their way to arrest them. But John refuses, but Bishop is trying to convince him and tell him that they are forced to steal, and John agrees and decides to go with Nolan. When Detective Dawes arrives, she sees no one in the boat. Here we see John, Nolan, and Bishop on their way to their new mission, and that's how the film ends.